G'day, welcome back to the channel. So after about 2 years, it's finally time to drop the body back onto the chassis and start taping up for paint. So let's get into it. All right, so everything's sandblasted and coated in epoxy. So radiator shroud, front grille. These rear tub access panels are quite badly dinted. So I'm gonna have to do a bit of hammer and dolly and then prime them. I don't think there would be an access panel out there that wouldn't be dinted though. They cop a lot of abuse on the sides. So we've got these two body mount access covers. This is for the bonnet, on top of the radiator shroud. It's for the bonnet latch to go in. The other two corner access panels in the rear tub. These are the tailgate hinges. Just really fiddly, annoying things to try and do yourself unless you've got a sandblasting cabinets, which I will eventually get because they are actually worth their weight in gold, those things. And then you've got the cross member for the gearbox, which has a mount for the Turbo 350. And then you got these lower spoilers, where you can call them whatever you want. I'm calling them spoilers. So yeah, they're actually not too bad. There's a couple of little dints on them. But otherwise, for something that's right down in the ground, not the end of the world. Hey mate, there you go. And got a little bit of rust in just this little section here. Can be removed, so it can be seen, this piece. So you want it to be good. And although it's going to be covered up by the bonnet most of the time, it is possible to be removed, so that needs to be fixed. The radiator shroud looks brand new, other than the fact that it's got all that shocking rust right along that base panel there, which you remember the last episode when I was showing you, I was just picking through. It's not until you get the sandblaster on that you realise, how bad it really is. And there's no point even trying to fix that. You've just got to replace the whole thing, because what you can't see is it's probably wafer thin on a lot of the other stuff that hasn't poked through yet. But you can see quite clearly all the spot welds that you need to drill out. And then you've just got two little weld points here that you can just simply grind off, pull that whole panel off and just replace it. And then you get access underneath that you can epoxy and clean up, and that thing will last another 30 years. So sandblasting's cost me $350, which I didn't think was that cheap, but I've never done any sandblasting before, so let me know if I've got ripped or not. Got it down at Vic Blast and Coat in Bendigo, but they did a good job. This panel's going to be $189, so really if you factor it all in, probably would have been better to buy a new one of these. I'm yet to see one that's brand new. They're all got some kind of issues with them these days. Might as well just invest in it, save it, and that's another one that's not thrown out. All right, so let's get to the main event. Today, I am going to get this cleaned up, and then I'm going to lower the body back onto the chassis. So, massive day. It was almost like Christmas Eve last night, because it's a big step forward. So, I've got a bit of work to go before I get to that point. I've got a mate coming over. He's going to help me because I just don't want to try and embark on doing it myself. Could be potentially dangerous if something happened. I don't want to be stuck out in the middle of nowhere with a ute on me. So I'm going to get in there. I'm going to have to put the winch up there again. So I'm going to have to rearrange a few things. But before I do that, I'm just going to do a little bit more sanding, tape up the back, the Raptor liner is, just to get most of that dusty kind of stuff done. Then I'll wash this, and by the time that's all done and I've put the lift up, my mate will be here and we can get cracking on it. All right, so I've taped up the rear tub to protect the Raptor liner from any dust, but before I get it off the road history, I was just going to go over it with, so put some guide coat down, do a DA sander with 320. I've already done 280. And so that will sort of give me access to the roof, which will struggle when it's down on the chassis. And go over the panels, etc., to try and take as much advantage of this rotisserie as I can before it comes off. That way I'm happy. Then I just have to go over it with 500 and 800 once it's back on the chassis, and that's fine. You know, the underneath might get a little bit dusty, but before I roll this out, before I take it off, I might roll it out, give it a bit of a hose down before I put it back on the chassis. So my mate rolls up in about 2 hours. So I'll give that a go. Then I'm going to wash down the chassis, but first let's get cracking on this sanding. Okay, so I've sanded back the primer that I laid over those bare spots the other day to 280 and then the whole thing at 320. Still biting through, so I'm just going to get a bit of primer at the end of the rag or something and just touch up the areas that have bitten through, just so I'm not getting that overspray or that orange peel, because it just starts the whole process again. I've run out of time to finish it basically in the booth. I've got to get on the chassis. My mate's coming in about half an hour, and I've still got to put the crane up here and wash the actual chassis. So it's pretty filthy at the moment, so I've just wanted to give it a clean, blow it off with dust, give it a wash, because once it goes back down, probably won't be coming back off again. So need to move all this stuff first. Might move that up to the mezzanine. Then I've got a nice working space. I might roll this into here and get the gurney, or might just bring the gurney over here and give it a good wash and get it prepped. All right, so give you an update. Miles and his daughter Remedy are here. We're just about got the body out of the booth. It's been there for about 2 years. And we've got the chassis washed and it's ready to roll in. So now we've just got to figure out how we're going to get those guards out, and then we're going to put this back in, and then it's time to actually winch it up. Got the crane back in. Almost had a heart attack getting that up. Luckily, Miles saved the day. So anyway, it's all set and ready to go. We just need to roll her in now. So we have got it in position, got this strap system. I've almost had to go back and look at my own video just to figure out how I did it. But yeah, bought this strap, wasn't long enough, so I just tied it, bridged it with that. So that's pretty much going to be holding the weight. And we're just slowly edging down the hydraulics on each side. So we've got it, dropped it down probably half a foot. It's around about 760 from the ground. The chassis, I measured it's around about 660, so I've got a bit of room there. Yeah, so now I've just got to unbolt, keep this one on, because this doesn't matter. This one's going to be holding the back, but this front is going to be suspended by this cable, which was always the precarious thing that happened last time. Of, you know, once you take this front area off, this is literally being supported by this roof. So obviously minimise that. I might put a couple of bracings under there, just in case, but essentially now the idea is to just unbolt these and then yeah, get ready to suspend the weight on entirely onto this, edge it out, and we can roll the old chassis in. Look at that. She's back on the chassis after 2.5 years. Not fully bolted in. I've got a piece of wood here. So originally, if you refer back to the getting it on the rotisserie video, I had fashioned up some old hooks here to instigate actually getting it off the chassis. And then once it was jimmied up, I put a log there and then I could put the strap. Got to do the reverse now to get the strap out, otherwise it's going to get caught on the chassis and the body. That's no biggie. So instead of taking the doors off and doing all that, I'm thinking I'll just jack it up from in between here. I'm hoping it's got enough strength in that floor pan there just to raise it up. It's only the body. And then that will allow me to clear it and then, slide that strap out. Yeah, once the strap's out, then I can just release the jack and put it back down. But before I do that, I've got to actually get that cross member in. Now that it's been dropped 50 mil all around, it's quite tight. Well, it's going to be tight, so I can't actually slide under that chassis. You can see it's pretty low. So, but yeah, it looks so clean now as well. So just looking in the wheel arch and just seeing the Raptor liner and then you see the KBS chassis, the new suspension, the fuel tank. It's just, yeah, this looks awesome. These tyres and these wheels have got to go, obviously. Also, I'm hoping this drops down a bit more because these are supposed to be King's super low springs. And at the moment, I'm not happy with that at all. So you can see, let's do it to drop down a good 4 or 5 inches at the front. That is on the rear body mounts there. But as it's coming down, I would imagine it's going to drop down at least a couple of inches. But still, it's got a fair way to go. So if it's not as low as I really want it, I might put a 1 inch lowering block as well as those lowered springs. I've heard some people doing that just to get a little bit lower. Because I have seen some of those lowering springs can still look a little bit high, I guess. That's just probably they make them 3 inches because you can't go any lower legally, but really you'd probably want 4 to 5 inches drop to make its stance look really nice. But yeah, it still looks like a bit of a basket case. If you were to rewind and see this thing 2 years ago, it pretty much looked the same, except for instead of being epoxied and then 2K'd and polyester filler and body filler and all that, it was just etch primer and in grey. But the chassis was rusty and dirty, and as you can see, it's brand new now. Now I've chucked the cowl panel on here to start, because this is the whole reason I've put this onto the body and didn't spray it on the rotisseries because of this panel here. So everyone was telling me that to gap it properly, you don't want any flex in the body. So get it down on the chassis, weld it in, then that's where it's going to stay. But honestly, I reckon I could have just put this on when it was hanging on the rotisserie. It's not, I don't think the body flexed at all. This gap here is obviously going to tighten up because this door's ajar with the strap. But so it'll be around about that. And I'm happy with that. Factory, they'll probably similar to that anyway. So you can imagine that gap there, just continue it right along. And as I mentioned, these panels are so good. They're so accurate because I think they came off the original molds anyway. So, that's why you pay that kind of money. It's probably even gone up. So yeah, that's really, I can't really move that much. I've fitted it before in a previous episode and that's pretty much where it's going to stay. So it's pretty accurate. Each side's exactly the same. I'm not even going to bother to put the front guards on because I can adjust them. It's not going to make an absolute millimetre of difference it's there, it's not moving. So that's where it's going to be welded in. So yeah, you can see the body mounts looking factory down there and making a huge difference. So I've got a little bit of a guide pin there, just a little guide hole there just to see how to line it up. So I'm a little bit off, but yeah, I'll just adjust it as I need be. So the thing I'd like to do before I lower it right down because of access issues is I'm going to paint that cross member, the gearbox cross member. I've got a little bit of black top left. I'm going to etch prime it. And while it's up on the strap, I'm going to let it dry overnight and then bolt that in while I've got a little bit more access. And that way, that's the last thing done. And then I can lower it down. All right, let's, 6 minutes of talking bullshit, so I better get into it. Just amazing how clean it looks underneath compared to what it was. So keep referring back to the old photos, and yeah, it's looking great. So ride height, now that it's fully sat back down, you can see the wheels sort of tucked in a bit more, but still sitting too high. So the body mounts are adding about 1/2 an inch, I reckon, because the other ones are obviously sagged and compressed. So, but that's, there's not much you can do about that. They're not going to really sag too much in the near future. So I reckon a lowering block, 1 inch lowering block or something on that, potentially. Let me know your thoughts. But yeah, they were King super lows. They can't get any lower than that. So it's supposed to be a 3-inch drop, I think. And it looks fine. Look, it looks like it's tucked in nicely. And, I wouldn't shy away from it if that was the way it had to be. But yeah, I might look into whether I can push it a little bit more legally and get it down just to tuck it in a little bit more. Obviously the front's up because the engine's not in. That's the other side there. Those wheels really stack out of the guards almost, which I do like. You can go either way, as I said, like 15-inch with a lot of tyre, or go the 17-inch with less tyre. I think I'll go the 17. Something different. That door's pushing out slightly because it's just not 100%, that door. It's still a little bit high there, but I might just push it in, but it may be too late for that now. So anyway, that is that. So the next stage will be to paint or to get the cowl panel in, to start lining up those doors. There might be a little bit of work in getting those correct lines going on each corner, but that'll be next episode. But couldn't be happier to get it on the chassis. Well, there you have it. Finally, after all that time, its body's back on the chassis. As I mentioned, I can't wait to get it painted, but I'm stoked that it's actually on there. And it's all easy from here on in, I reckon. It's just a matter of getting it painted, which will be the most anxious and nerve-wracking part. But I'm going to tackle the firewall inside the door sills, and I will leave the cowl panel until I paint the rest of the car. And that way I can just tape up the firewall and the inner doors and things like that. Leave the bonnet off. I'm going to do the bonnet separate. I think just with this booth, I'd like to try and keep the overspray down as much as possible. So I'll do the bonnet separately. So it'll just be guards, main body, and cowl panel really. Anyway, just thought I'd get an episode out, and this was a big one. Really happy. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Thanks for everyone for supporting in the comments that have been really, really helpful over the last couple of episodes and getting to the pointy end. So thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.